Hello and welcome to this third special upload on the Public Relations podcast feed of the third pilot episode of Comms Question Time. Now, this was a really packed panel because this time we had Jon Woodroof, we had Komal Lath, and Helen Barnett, who took part in the panel as we tackled two more questions from listeners with comms scenarios they were trying to sort out. I hope you find this really interesting. I hope you found the other two pilot episodes interesting as well. And if we get enough, if I can see that people are watching these episodes and enjoying them, then I will do a full series and get some more panelists on, perhaps even yourself.
Coming up, how can a legal startup with a great product but a problem convincing their target market get noticed? And what should a pet food brand do if its advertising and marketing just aren't working? Could public relations help in both instances? We're going to be tackling those questions today and trying to come up with an action plan for the people asking them before the end of this show. Welcome then to Comms Question Time. And a question for you, dear listener. What has PR got to do with SEO, search engine optimization? Well, SEO, as I'm sure you know, is about making websites appear more prominently online. That's important if you want people to notice you or learn about you the first time. But that source of customers or supporters could be under threat. According to Search Engine Land, which is a respected SEO news site, AI search is going to take over. And the problem is this: AI isn't going to list 200 results with your site in it. If it mentions any source at all, it might mention just the top 5 big names. So what's the solution? Well, for an SEO industry which is heavily technically focused, the answers, according to the authors, was public relations. And this is why. Because AI will only mention people if it thinks you're so credible and so relevant that it has to mention them. And how do you get it to think that way? Firstly, by being credible, and secondly, by getting other people to talk about your credibility, i.e. PR. It's a good story and getting it out there. This is just one example of how so many areas are turning to PR in this new era of marketing. So if you want to stand out in the future, you are in the right place today, because Comms Question Time is a place where businesses and organizations get to ask a panel of PR practitioners how to cut through today's societal noise and AI challenges to reach people on a deep emotional level. So let me start introducing them to you. Let me first start off with Helen Barnett. Hello, good morning to you, Helen. You're in the UK, aren't you?
I am, yes. I'm in cloudy Essex.
Cloudy Essex. Tell us about yourself.
So I'm a content strategist, journalist, writer. I started my career in local news and worked my way up to become associate editor of the Daily Express online, which is one of the nationals here in the UK. I left that role in the end of 2022 to start off my own business. And basically, I help businesses work out what to say, where, and how to best connect with their ideal customers.
Jon, let's get over to you. You are on a lovely sunny day. Where
I'm
are
in
you?
Königstein on the Elbe near the Czech-German border. I just rode 200-something kilometers here over the past 2 days, and I'm on my way to Dresden for the European Handmade Bicycle Show. So next month, November 29th, my company turns 10 years old, and we do PR marketing, also some kind of sales, commercial stuff like connecting brands to distributors and retailers, but also producing photo shoots. So it's not just PR, but I always say PR is kind of our bread and butter. Like if a brand comes to us and wants attention in Germany, Austria, Switzerland, or in Spain, or Italy, and France, in the Benelux, we get them coverage as far as reviews and features.
Come on, let's go straight over to you. Get your introduction as well. Tell us about you.
Hi, I am logging in from Mumbai, which is part of India. And I run a communications company called Tute Consult. We basically are a blended marketing company. So I won't say PR is bread and butter, but my peanut butter also includes community, a lot of content, and connect. I think that sort of brings in what we do.
I see a lot of stories. We've spoken to you quite a few times before on the Public Relations podcast as well about all the things you're doing. Of course, all my guests today will be very happy to connect with you, and I've put their details on the screen if you're watching the video version of this, and also on the website at CommsQuestionTime.com. So if you would like to connect with them after the show, or if you've got any particular questions you'd like to follow up on, then feel free to reach out to them. And I should introduce myself as well, just before we start. I'm Richard Midson. I'm a former radio news broadcaster, journalist and editor for some of the UK's big news organisations. I was a public relations officer in European politics. And today, well, I cover the latest PR and comms techniques in a show called the Public Relations Podcast. Right, that's enough of the introductions. Let's get into the meat of this. I've got two quite interesting scenarios today. Let's start with the first one. Our first question today comes from someone who's been working in the legal space for a while in business development, i.e. getting more clients for his legal firm. And our listener has been quite good at it, and that inspired them to want to go out on their own. And they've been working with some coders to develop a client relationship management system specifically for the legal profession. They believe their system would help other firms generate sales. Now, their system's main benefit is it's already set up for legal firms, while other more general systems need a lot of configuration. This just works out of the box. But most legal firms, they said to me when I was talking to them, still rely on pen and paper and post-it notes to get clients through word of mouth. A potential investor, who turned them down, said they won't stand a chance if you have to educate customers about why they should use a product. Before they quit, they're wondering if PR could help and if Comms Question Time panel might have an action plan for them that they could at least try. My first thought on this when I was reading this scenario and talking to this person was that they've got to really think not about the legal profession as one big thing with this label of being pen and paper only. They've got to actually nail down who are the people who are interested in tech. So the starting place, as ever, with all these kind of campaigns is working out who exactly are you trying to reach. Do we agree with that?
Yeah, and I think that might be a way to sort of get some low-hanging fruit. Go for the tech law firms. So who works in the SaaS space? They are going to be more inclined to use a CRM system because they're used to different sorts of technology.
Yeah, it's starting off, isn't it? It's about saying, well, where do we start? Who's that niche area we can start from and we can grow from there? I mean, how would you approach it, Komal, in terms of targeting who the right people are?
I think segmenting is very key, like Helen's mentioned and you've mentioned. Apart from just the firms who manage the technology, I think what may be relevant is where all the law firms are together. So be a part of a law-based conference or something where you get to talk to everybody, but with a benefit, not with the, hey, this is my product. Nobody cares about what your product is. But hey, what can it do for me? And it's going to save you that many man hours and land you business. If you give the revenue angle to it, I think there will be more takers at a very, very targeted audience. PR can play a huge role in the way the content is done as well as the placement of them being there.
Yeah, so the problem is trying to get that story out there, isn't it? So, I mean, how would you do you think you approach the story, John? I mean, what's your first thoughts on this?
First thought for me, I mean, I worked in software development for an app consulting company and later for a SaaS company. There is a lot of like tech specific media that loves to feature launches, betas, investment stories. But if they do have kind of to Kamal's example of like a story that benefited either the clients or a firm or something with the tool, then they get that story in those kind of more tech leaning publications where forward thinking or early adopting kind of law firms maybe would be reading. I mean, I have a lawyer in my co-working space who's not your typical lawyer. He's got tons of tattoos. You know, we talk about CRMs actually, but he's reading things like Wired, TechCrunch, stuff like that. I think that's where I would think to go for sure.
So starting off with, we need examples. We need a story about an example.
Like a real world example that is easy for people to understand. Forget the features, forget the pricing, forget like the benefits. It has to be a story like we started using this tool. It saved somebody's career or it won us the case or whatever that is. Yeah.
Mm. Helen, what do you think would be the kind of way to approach this? Because it feels like it's quite a dry story. I can't see any national newspaper being interested in it. So if you were trying to create a story around this, what do you think would be the angle to go off? I mean, we know we've got this problem here with the kind of the old-fashioned traditional legal firm wanting to use pen and paper. Is there maybe something in that?
Yeah, I think pitching it as the problem solver. The CRM is the problem solver. That's kind of the angle that I would go to. And you're right, national media wouldn't be interested in this. This is trade media story. And having a case study definitely helps, but also thought leadership is great for trade media. So if you're trying to pitch to law firms specifically, go to their trade magazine or websites and basically offer a comment piece on perhaps like more general, the changing way that law firms are operating, show your authority, and then also then put in the information about this CRM and just basically how the industry is moving, which direction it's going, saying in the future, this is the future. And if you've got to compete with everybody else, you need to get on board with automation and CRM systems, and you can actually save a lot of money. I think, including some case studies as to how the product has helped businesses will certainly add weight to that story. And then from there, you can, at the end of the thought leadership, you can offer some sort of link to a free trial or a workshop that's being held. So basically keep the journey going.
John, you look like you've got a thought.
One thing we do for our customers on like the thought leadership thing is much like our show today, get them on podcasts, get them speaking at conferences, get them interviewed. So I think we all agree on the idea of getting kind of a feel-good story, or at least like a useful example story of like how the tool made like a positive difference, but just get like the founders of the company or someone within the company, maybe even a customer of the company, interviewed and featured, where people are listening and paying attention that are in the industry. I think that's another one worth pointing out.
What about getting over this problem of the pen and paper thing, though? I mean, there he had an investor in front of him that said, look, if people in your industry don't use CRMs, I'm not going to invest in you because you can't convince them. I mean, can PR actually have an impact on these people? I mean, Komal, you got any thoughts on that?
So as an investor, I do invest in a lot of companies too. And I think I get where that problem is, because if it's not scalable, it's not investable, right? To make it scalable, there has to be adoption. So in agreement with that, this one story may not cut it, but a multitude of building authority, whether it's a podcast, whether it's a inclusion as an industry or a trade piece, all of those will become relevant. But what will really help is what, like Jon and Helen said, is the use case. So if you need to crack that one customer and then sort of milk that as a placement folder everywhere, I'd say if I were to look at this at a very directional level, I'd sort of go to the law firm and do a lot of smart content-led exercise. Like create an infographic saying so many hours saved, so much revenue that can be generated. Let's do a premium model where I will get you to adopt the product for 15 days. You don't see results, no problem. Everybody likes a money back guarantee. Throw in a bit of that. And then if the product is great, the results will be hailed. So I think PR can definitely help where content and the marketing side of it is concerned. The investor community will look at scale, and that scale can be adopted with a FOMO effect. You need to crack one and the rest will follow if the right one is spoken about.
So if they come to you, Komal, tomorrow and say to you, look, everyone else is doing this, you're going to miss out, then you might be interested, right?
I will, even without checking the product, bet on the founder, because always when investing, it is on who you are investing and the scalability. If both tick, the chances of getting in on are much higher and faster.
Well, let's talk about this narrative then. So what I'm getting here is that we need to start off with a case study, or they need to get a case study first of all. Someone who is, I mean, is this someone, do you think we want someone who has been using the pen and paper and the Post-it notes, who's been converted? Is that the kind of person we're looking for?
If you're going for trade media, so law firms, yes, I would say someone who has gone from the pen and paper and had their processes revolutionized. I don't necessarily think that's as important for if you're going for the tech media. I think then you don't need someone who's gone straight from having everything on a Post-it note. You can still have someone who's quite tech savvy.
That's a really interesting point, because I'm thinking you're ultimately trying to convince lawyers, aren't you? You're trying to convince legal professionals. So if they're reading the tech media, you've not only got to hook the story for the tech media to be interested, but you've also got to carry your message to those lawyers, haven't you?
Yeah. So I guess you've got sort of two different angles there, because the tech media are going to be wanting something that's, really innovative. And it's kind of by chance if a lawyer is reading it, but they are going to be, if they're interested in tech media already, then they're going to be, like Jon said, early adopters. And so perhaps want to know a bit more in-depth information on why this is different. I think that maybe is also one thing that we have missed here, is what makes this CRM different to the others that are already around there. And what I'm assuming here is that because it's for law firms, it's got an added layer of security. If I was a law firm, I need to make sure that everything is going to be watertight and there's not going to be breaches. So perhaps that's an angle to go into. This is heightened security. And then therefore you're setting yourself apart from all the others that are already on the market.
So we're saying one case study, someone that's been using pen and paper who's going to have success with it as that case study. We're going to follow them along, and then we're going to release like infographics. And then we've talked about various other different models like pitching to the tech press, and also things like just even offering premium models to get people on board. But that core story about someone that's moving from pen and paper to getting success with this, right?
I would even come in from the other side. The thought that I had that we would do with customers of ours, like let's say if it's a tire brand, let's team up with a wheel brand, or if it's an accessory company that makes like tools, let's team up with the kind of accessories that you maybe would need to mount with a certain kind of tool. Like there's a wrench called a torque wrench that you can't tighten too hard that would like break carbon or something like that. And you can turn like potential liabilities into a positive thing. Like you can mount this carbon thing if this wrench won't break it. So my idea with this app is, I think it's becoming more and more common to have these kind of digital tablets with like a stylus, and you can write the notes. Maybe there's integrations with existing systems and platforms the lawyers already use. And if they're used to doing pen and paper, or better yet, if they're used to using one of these tablets, those tablet companies have their own marketing and case studies feature this CRM in kind of a collaborative way. So that's something we're often looking for, is like, how can we feature like complementary products and they both benefit from the same content?
Partnerships, isn't it? I remember having a guest on the public relations podcast who basically built all her PR through partnerships.
Rising tide lifts all boats.
Found the right people that could reach the market she wanted to reach. So just thinking very quickly from each of your own sort of particular expertise and your clients that you've worked with, I mean, is there a particular thing that you would personally go, I would just have to do it on this campaign? Komal?
I would definitely get them speaking at a lawyer's conference, because I would have 50 companies getting to present in one go. So instead of one-on-one and then discovery, for me, the must-have, not a good to have, a must-have would be that. Get them a placement or an authority speakership or a panel where, to attract a larger set who is sitting there and does not know that they can have a modified way of working.
Helen, what would you do? What would be your must-do
So
thing?
I am a big fan of thought leadership because it sets you apart from every other business. There's so much content out there now. You need to be an authority. So I'm always advising clients on how are you going to do thought leadership. I mean, it doesn't have to be a 2,000-word feature with lots of research. It can just be LinkedIn posts that are commenting on the state of the industry, or a video to put on your Instagram if you have Instagram, something that basically shows that you know your stuff. So I'm always for thought leadership.
And Jon?
I agree with both.
What's your must-do thing?
With both of the examples they shared as far as thought leadership, but I'm also going to throw all my chips in on the partnerships. So like the existing tools and software that lawyers use, maybe something like the tablets, just kind of doubling down and getting this new tool featured with like real world examples, also in the content marketing strategies of like complementary and partner programs.
So first thing for them to do today of all these though, is go get a case study, get a clear case study as someone that's gone from pen and paper to success.
Yes.
Awesome. Excellent. We're halfway through. A quick reminder, if you'd like to put your scenario and question to the panel on Comms Question Time, then there are two ways to do it. Either go to CommsQuestionTime.com and fill out the form on the homepage, or reach out to me on LinkedIn. You can always do that under my name, Richard Midson, Midson. And if you want to reach out directly to any of the panelists today, as I said before, I've put all their details on the screen if you're watching the video version of this, or on the website at CommsQuestionTime.com, where you can connect with them directly on there and ask any questions that you have. Right, let's move on to scenario number 2 then. There is a new pet food firm out there focused on organic pet foods. The food is hypoallergenic, grain-free, and sustainably sourced, and it's targeting a premium, health-conscious pet owner market. But they're struggling to gain traction. The firm is led by 3 nutritionists who have a science background, and they admit they're not experts at marketing. So far, the company has been heavily investing in advertising to highlight the benefits of the food, but it hasn't really worked. And they believe there's a couple of reasons for this. Number one, the market is dominated by one competitor, a firm that owns all the prominent displays in most major pet shops. And secondly, that the premium food tends to be viewed as being pretty much all the same by consumers. So why should they choose a new untested brand. In addition to the advertising, they've also tried making a few announcements on social media, but they haven't really done much in terms of community building, they say. They aim to get people to walk into pet shops, this is their goal, and demand that the shops start stocking their products. And they're asking the panel if a PR-led approach might help here, if the panel can tell them what they can do today to start turning this around. Well, I don't know. When I started thinking about this one, I just thought this is actually quite a tough one, because you've got a group of people who are scientists, they're not really marketers, they've not been building a community, they've got a product which sounds like it's good, but it's pretty similar to everyone else. So the first thing, which I think, Helen, you said this at the beginning on the other scenario, was you've got to differentiate yourself, haven't you?
Definitely. I think the science background's brilliant. The fact that this is made by scientists is such a good angle. The other angle that I think would be beneficial, because if this is really high quality, is show traceability. So where does this food come from? Because I think there's a lot of mystery on where does the jellified mush that you get in a tin, where does that actually come from, and is it real meat? So I think the fact that if you could trace it back to perhaps a farm, or it's come from this part of the animal, I think that would give people confidence in the product.
Anyone else got some thoughts on how you can differentiate this and how they can differentiate their story? John?
My first thought, and this might seem cheesy, but just go straight to influencer marketing in like a specific niche or region. This is something I learned from like a sales meetup I used to organize years ago. Don't focus on Germany. Don't focus on Bayern, bitte. I am in Germany. Don't focus even on Munich. Focus on a specific neighborhood. Maybe it's like a more affluent neighborhood, and influencers that are based there. Maybe could be like cool mom or cool dad influencers, or like pet influencers that have like a regional focus. And then you even could partner with like a kennel that's well known, or maybe has like a strong social media following, a kennel that does like pet training. And they're like, when we're training these dogs, they need to be well nourished, and we give them this food. And, maybe there's a collabo post between whatever family pet focused influencer plus the kennel, something like that. And that I think starts to build trust with consumers, where they're already getting pet advice from these people. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of like pet blogs, and there's a whole SEO thing where you're Googling like, how do I know if this food is healthy for my cat? One last little story where I was staying with my friend Andre that I'm riding with today. They have a new kitten, and his wife was feeding the kitten, and the kitten like threw up. And her first thought was to give the kitten like another food or more food. And Andre's like, why are you giving that more food? It just threw up. Obviously, that food made the kitten's stomach upset. But this is something that people would Google. So maybe there's like some good strategies there that we use about, examples that people are searching. But my first thought is influencer marketing, or partnering with well-known or.
You're saying it's sort of an example there of trying to tie it into your particular foods. Or, I mean, it's a difficult one, I suppose, from a science point of view, but saying it wouldn't have happened with our food almost, or it's time to try a different food if your cat's still throwing up. I mean, in my experience, I've got a cat and he throws up all the blooming time. So it might even be a good hook to actually tie into. Is your cat throwing up?
I think the influencers could talk about the science angle, but we frequently use it in the cycling world. So like, you can talk about the scientific or data-driven aspects about anything about bikes, like, how lightweight it is or how whatever. But if someone that you like and someone that you trust is like, this is the best, this is the coolest, this is the, most value for money, you believe it.
I mean, Komal, you've worked with plenty of influencers in your time. You any thoughts on that one?
I think I'll take a very emotional angle to this. So I'm in complete agreement with what Helen and John said, but I think pets are like children, right? So they get swayed, we get swayed by emotion. So I take that angle, and I'll segment this into two very distinct triggers of my influence. One will be wet. For me, what the wet says will be golden. And the second will be the customer purchasing it, which is my 1% or 1%, right? Because it's premium. It's also the number of pets. So if I have to segment them, I'd use the content creator platform, but with these two segments. So one, if the vets have to recommend it, it's done. That is going to be sacrosanct, and that becomes part of your adoption process. very similar to a skincare brand I've spoken about on your show, Richard, wherein we use a derma channel.
Yeah.
And then the adoption was viral because it came from a place of authority. So if my trigger or my source is that, there's no questioning it because he is or she is the ultimate authority then. So influence that by means of content creator and collaboration. That definitely would be one part of it. And the second is the actual pet, the one who's making the purchase and where does he or she get that information is definitely Googling what's good for my pet, what's going to be healthy for my pet. So bringing in a lot of the press attention by them. And again, doing a lot of introduction of the brand to journalists or creators who have pets with a personalized note will change the entire perception. The third leg to this will be the distributors themselves wanting to queue up because, hey, everyone's talking about it. Why don't I stock them? They seem to be doing it. So it sort of should run in the next 6 months in that way. I think it should be good.
Is that how, Helen, is that how you would like to sort of get a pitch as well? Would that be the approach, you think? Aim for a journalist that has a pet and do it that way? What do you think?
I think that there are so many people who could profess to be an expert in pet, but having the scientists, because they've got scientist background, I feel like that's shorthand for expert. So I would lean into that. And what I would say is look at the content on your social media, which I think is the main source, personally, for their PR. The content should be sort of science-backed, but sort of approachable. The other companies are not doing that kind of content with that sort of intelligence. And especially because it's premium, the people who are buying premium are generally quite high educated or want the best for their pets. They will be going to the vets regularly. So they want to see that people who have made this product have actually put thought behind it and there's evidence backed. So I think personally, I would go down more of a, we are the experts. We love our pets. They've got to still be quite, approachable and relatable and understand what pet owners, how they feel. But we love our pets and this is why we have done X, Y, and Z with our pet food. That is kind of the...
So in terms of an action plan, what I'm getting here then is we go down the science background as being the strong angle, the fact that they are scientists, they are experts. And then we really partner with people to get that word out. Because if these scientists aren't very good at doing their own social media and aren't doing their own promotion, then they're going to need to partner with other people. And there's plenty of people out there, by the sound of it, who would push this message if you can come along with a nice, strong story for them.
Yeah.
How do we feel about that plan?
There's got to be an origin story here from the scientists. So why have they decided to do it? I'm guessing it's not because they have just decided, oh, this will be a good moneymaker. There will be an emotional reason. And that's kind of how you connect the dots is, you've got the intelligent scientists who really thought about the product, but there is an emotional connection too. And that's how you will connect with the customers because everybody loves their pets like they're their children.
Jon, one final thought in terms of what would be your must-have thing?
One thing I think we're almost forgetting, and this is common in my line of work when you want to get like a review feature where they're like comparing different products. This has to exist specifically in like pet owner publication. That could be in like a pet owner's publication or something like that. And I think that's one thing that we're leaving out is some kind of like review feature that's comparing products, which could include the origin story. It can include like the scientific data and hopefully like the value for money.
And Komal, have you got any final thoughts? What would be your must-have thing going into this as well?
I'd use the creator approach by the vet channel. I think for me that seems more effective to influence the right people. Everybody's drawing out news and this particular category works on word of mouth. If somebody recommends it, everybody latches onto it. And then of course the efficacy is there because of the scientists, which comes across when they speak about it. So I think it's a combination of what Helen, Jon, and me are seeing.
So many great ideas. This is one of the things I love about this format of this new show. Thank you so much to all of you. Although at the moment on the screen, we'll just have a picture of Jon showing up because we've lost his video feed. But I really appreciate all your ideas today. And I hope it's going to be really useful for those people asking the questions as well. If you would like to ask a question to Comms Question Time, then don't forget you can do that directly via the website at CommsQuestionTime.com. And of course, you can reach out to our panelists today. They'd be delighted to hear from you. If you want to ask them any follow-up questions or find out more information about what they do as well, you get all the details for that on the website at CommsQuestionTime.com. Or if you're watching the video version, you can see the caption for them on the screen right now. Thank you very much to all of you today. Really appreciate it. And I hope to speak to you again very, very soon.